and now she holds the Ernst Ehrlich Scholarship, and today she will talk about her research with the title of Agent of Mass Destruction.
Thank you, Robert. It is an honor to be here. And what I'm going to do today in this presentation is to present the guidelines of my research and share my thought of what I regard as knowledge construction in an ideological system. Using this frame, I will see how sociology, and specifically the sociological work of the late Professor Shmuel Eisenstadt, interact with projects of identity construction. Now, Eisenstadt, who also took part in the master class,
was the first master.
He was in fact a world leading sociologist, a true giant who held a vast, deep understanding in the field of comparative historical sociology, the study of modernity, social change, globalization, and the list goes on. His personal biography is connected with his experiences of immigration from Poland to mandatory Palestine, war, and the establishment of the State of Israel. Now, we are dealing with a topic of crisis, and it's important to say that we cannot talk about Israel and Israeli sociology without mentioning the crisis in its background, that of mass extermination and the genocide of the Second World War. As we approach the subject, we should keep that in mind, that following the genocide, Israel as a political project was imagined as an attempt to overcome the atrocities, both practically and symbolically. In my study, I'm mostly interested in how the academic study of sociology is connected and reflecting the raison d'etre of specific political culture and how and in which way it can take part in its construction. In other words, I'm focusing on the reflective element of sociology and on its function as a form of a mobilizing force, an agent, if you wish. And here I refer to the hegemonic position of academia as an institution that has the legitimacy to construct knowledge. Such legitimacy, especially when the state is in a phase of nation building, has the power to establish an image of society which is later perceived, to some extent, as the social reality. In addition, I would like to talk about narratives and myths, about the story through which society explains and legitimizes its present structure and institution. I'm talking specifically about how national narratives, which are often mythical, can play a role in shaping the study of sociology. Having said that, I would like to ask, what image of society is depicted in the Eisenstadtian sociology, and on which foundation does this image rest? My hypothesis is that the Zionist ethos and narrative that mythologize the Jewish past have taken a part in the formation of the sociological studies in Israel, at least to a certain point of time, from which they have shifted to other direction. In this sense, I offer to regard Eisenstadt, and I will focus in this presentation only on the early work, only on his early works, as a source from which we can learn about the formation of collective identities. Of course, it is unclear at the moment what separates early Eisenstadt from later Eisenstadt, and how many different Eisenstadts are there anyway. To summarize this point, I offer to view the way sociology regards society as a form of indication to the process of collective construction. Sociology is, after all, a cultural product. It is not immune to processes of collective construction, and it should be, therefore, the subject of sociological and historical analysis. Over the years, the Israeli Academy, so sociology developed into a radical discipline. It has moved through pluralism, Marxism, feminism, post-colonialism, but, and this is the argument, in its early phase, it was nourished by a specific set of ideas. It has formulated the Zionist ethos while observing society. However, it is important to emphasize that this was in no way a blind belief in the Zionist institutions. Critical voices were raised, and Eisenstadt's voice was indeed one of them. So the picture is not black and white, and this analysis needs to take many issues into account. I begin my research from 2 points of departure. The first being Weber's account of a value-free sociology, and the second is the work of the people known as the new historians. These are groups of Israeli historians and social scientists who began to challenge national narrative in Israel in revealing them to be as Zionist constructions. Scholars such as Pape, Shafir, Zand, Ram, and Kimmerling, who was Eisenstadt's most prominent student, began to regard the Israeli intellectuals as a product of their own national culture. Following these new historians, I tried to see whether this criticism can also be applied to the academic sociology in Israel's past. The answer is not easy, and we should add some more theoretical ground to this discussion, but first I wish to provide some more background. The establishment of a new state is a challenging subject matter for sociological examination. In its course of political transformation, new institutions consolidate. A social as well as cultural identification may emerge, evolve, or that drastically change. This is also a phase in which group boundaries are drawn, narrative emerge, and the general sense of national identity is taking form or redefined. In this context, which several countries found themselves in following the post-World War era, Israel's early phase of statehood can be seen at the time characterized by a high degree of cultural heterogeneity. This means that people from different cultural backgrounds found themselves under the same national unit, needing to regard themselves as a unified nation with ancient roots. And in this regard, I would say that in Hebrew, the word am, which means people or nation, carries a primordial connotation. The paradoxes raised by a mixture of immigrants having to see themselves as autochthonic people had to be resolved. Language offers a solution. In modern Hebrew, Jewish immigrants, and I emphasize Jewish-only immigrants, were not simply referred as immigrants, but rather as those who have ascended, those who came up. Well, as a society of recent immigrants, the Knesset Israeli state urgently needed to undergo a mass cultural homogenization that will resort a coherent sense of a particular we. Drawing on the perception of collective identities as narrative constructions which permits control of boundaries, the homogenization project upon which Israel embarked can also be understood as a process that could provide the state with political legitimacy, based on a narrative system designated to implement a common, coherent sense of group identification, deriving institutionalized Israeli identity encompassed themes and motives taken from the Jewish belief system. The chosen people, the sons of King David, the return from the exile, salvation, the promised land, and all this was combined into a grand narrative that told the story of the people of Israel in a secular manner, in a manner that is very much reminiscent to the patterns of 19th century Romantic nationalism. Now, these religious elements, who were converted into modern myths, served as an immediate common denominator of identification upon which mass mobilization could have taken place and social consensus could increase. These secular narratives created a meta-historic link between the ancient Hebrew with the modern Jews. An ancient past, a sense of a strong transcendental uniqueness, and a moral mission were all a part of the national narrative structure set by the Zionist project. Now, on the verge of statehood, we are talking about the late 40s, Eisenstadt was assigned as the head of the Department of Sociology and Anthropology, formerly known as the Department of the Sociology of the Jews. This means that Jews were regarded as having unique sociological traits. The department from which the Jerusalem School would emerge had by now a clear perspective to study the Israeli society and to investigate its structure, currents, and needs. The main premise was that of modernization theory followed the functionalist analysis of Parsons. And here, since I guess I don't have much time, I will talk about one specific example, one of many, that demonstrates Eisenstadt's approach to the Israeli society in his early studies. from which his later scholarship would emerge. And this is the issue of integration, which I found suitable to the two main aspects I'm studying, that of identity construction and narrative structure. Immigration and social integration were the first subject to be studied by Eisenstadt in the late 40s and early 50s. It was indeed a highly relevant question for a new nation state that was on one side based upon, as I said, initiated immigration, and on the other hand, had to regard its immigrants not as immigrants, but as people who return to their ancestral lands. So here again we have the myth element that is very much shaping the understanding of social life. And Eisenstadt held this notion later in his Jewish civilization in the early 90s. So this is a late text. And he also held this notion in other places where he historically connected the ancient Hebrews with the Jewish modern existence. Now, Eisenstadt was very much concerned with what connected people to the society and made them a part of it within this heterogeneous reality. He, in fact, embarked upon his studies of immigration in asserting his view in the spirit of functionalism, and I quote, "The sociological structure of the Jewish community in Israel can be understood adequately only in light of the sociological basis of origin of this community. This point of origin is determined primarily by the primarily underlying aim of the issue." The issue, this I would have to translate this with the early Jewish colonies from the 19th century on. Determined by the primarily underlying aim of the issue to build a new and independent Jewish society in Palestine, and this is right just on the verge of statehood. This point of understanding society is determined in light, end quote, yeah. This point of understanding society is determined in light of the degree of its commitment to the state-building project as a Jewish society, which is in fact the essence of the Zionist project. The point of departure is the general aim, so here we can hear again the echoes of Parsons. And in this paragraph, which encompasses many other issues we can talk about, we have another echo, which comes from the Zionist repertoire of myth, and are referred to the myth of redemption and the narrative of revival, which prevailed in this time. Now, in the Jewish belief system, the redemption is of course collective, but it must come from divine will, and not from human motivation. There is even an explicit ban in the Talmud to revive to the Holy Land in collective effort. Well, the Zionists embraced this idea of redemption and revival, but turned it into a secular project that translated redemption into national vocabulary. And here we can hear again the trauma speaks, and the crisis which is being treated within the frame of a modern myth. Within the Zionist context, redemption means the working of the land, building a society around the land of the biblical fathers, and the re-establishing of the Jewish existence in the land. Now, this point of origin, as Eisenstadt called it, was indeed historically very central, and as we follow the text, it is formulated more and more in sociological terms, as I shall explain. Now, given that Eisenstadt is viewing the situation from the point of view of modernization theory, he is concerned also with the patterns of traditional life and within the modern evolving life in Israel. This is what made Eisenstadt to be very concerned with one specific group of immigrants, which he called the Oriental Jews. The Arab Jews, as they are called today, or they have another name, the Mizrahi, which means Easterners, as we today refer to them. Well, some of these groups began to immigrate to Palestine in the late 19th century for Messianic reasons, even before statehood was on the line. This fact of performing a religious pilgrimage and not immigrating for national ideological reasons have already placed these groups on the border of legitimate identity. When he refers to the Oriental Jews in his early article, Eisenstadt is pointing out the importance of individuals taking an institutional role within one of the Zionist new institutions as a way to avoid a social groupings, the Mizrahi, as I mentioned, is being born. The Mizrahi was characterized as one coherent group, although they came from many different places and did not regard themselves as culturally similar. They did not share the same history, nor language, and if so, not the same dialect, and not the same cultural traditions. As Ela Shohat argued, the Mizrahi were invented, and Eisenstadt early studies, testing from the text analysis, were a part of this construction in a way, and provided this invention with ontological status. Now, from this point of view of collective identity debate, I regard the study of the Arab Jews as a way to mark the other within. According to this logic, the Arab Jews was not exactly Arab, but they were not also completely Israeli. And not being completely Israeli has implications in the form of discrimination and denial of access to resources, both symbolic and materially. In this sense, the Mizrahi functioned as a barrier category that assisted in defining the ideal and legitimate identity. This approach to identity, of construction and other, as a negative image of oneself, was applied in the Israeli study of historiography. What I'm trying to see is whether this critique can be applied on the Israeli sociology. And here I will approach the end of my presentation. Eisenstadt had raised a great contribution to the study of modernity, the exile age, comparative historical sociology, globalization, and social change. Yet, a social historical analysis of his early studies can teach us a lot about an intellectual elite that was trying to decipher a culturally heterogeneous society, and by doing so, was also exposing its own self-perception, creating new categories of identity, new images and reflection of society, and finally, defining its border of collectivity and belonging. As mentioned, this view is coming from a place of crisis. This is, in a way, a post-crisis sociology, and in many ways, the trauma can explain many of the cultural phenomena we still observe today in Israel, from everyday life, military culture, education, the conflict, hierarchies, and the list goes on. I wish to end this presentation in the spirit of post-structuralism, and to say that knowledge is a way of gaining force. Construction of knowledge is a position that expresses force. Modern reading, we tend to estimate academic studies in terms of objectivity, while post-structuralist analysis will try to understand power relations and power structure that is rooted within the text. In my view, one of the first steps in deconstruction is being critical about the study material, to identify the voices of hegemony and the mechanism that stands behind it. Thank you very much for listening, and I would be grateful for any critical questions, remarks, or suggestions.